It's because they said we didn't learn that in school. And I thought to myself, what does that have to do with anything? Aren't you in your 40s? What excuse is there for you to not learn about history that outside of just your bubble? And this is why I always encourage all of you to get outside of just your bubble. Even if it's not your culture, why wouldn't you take the time to learn? It might come in handy later on, especially when it comes to what I teach about manifestation and about your connection with the universe. When I was learning, for instance, about the chakra system, that's not my culture. However, do you think that it doesn't play a part in my life the same way that it would in anybody else's? Of course it does. Because we all have a frequency. We all have the whole chakra system running through our body. So why wouldn't I take the time to learn? Why would I use the excuse of, well, I didn't learn that in school? Okay, but I'm a grown woman now. So don't I get to choose what I learn? As an Afro-Latina, I do need those of you who are new here to understand something. We are Black. Afro-Latinos are Black. Okay. We are not African American though. That is a completely different culture. And I need you all to understand the difference. Yes, we are Black, but we have a completely different culture. However, you know what I took in school so that I could learn about African American culture? African American studies. I took 2 semesters so that I could genuinely grasp how it connected to my culture as an Afro-Latina. If you are not familiar with the slave trade, guess where it began? Brazil. So meaning that's where my ancestors were dropped off at. Okay. Well, some of them, obviously you all know I'm also half Mexican, but I have never used the excuse of, well, I didn't learn that in school as a reason why I can't learn. Because I wanted to learn about African American culture because they're Black just like I am. So how can I understand you and understand where you're coming from if I don't know the first thing about you? First of all, we're both Black. So why wouldn't we want to know about each other's culture? And their excuse of why they didn't know that, it didn't sit right with me. But instead of shaming any of you, I hope you all understand this is not meant to shame you. This is meant for you to understand that it is important to know where you come from so that you know where you're going. And for those of us that are Black, keep in mind that Black people come from all over the world, all over. And many of us, our original ties are to Africa. And so I am constantly learning about African culture, which is why I know so much about the Orisha, because it was important for me to understand that part of my lineage and that part of my grandmother on that side of my family, who I won't get too far into it, but as a daughter of Shun, it was important for me to know, despite meaning that that's what she was. It was important for me to know where I came from so that I knew where I was going. Now, keep in mind, if you are new here, the Brazilian half of my family did not raise me whatsoever. I had to teach myself Portuguese as an adult. And I also was only raised by the Mexican half of my family. So that has been the biggest part of my identity. However, it's not an excuse to not know anything. I may not be the best at Spanish. It is my 3rd language, but that doesn't mean that I haven't taken the time to understand and to really absorb Mexican culture, etc. You think in school, even though I went to school in Texas, that we were taught everything about Mexican culture and Mexican history? Absolutely not. But that didn't stop me from learning. It didn't stop me whatsoever. And so it's up to you to decide if you're going to stay in your own little bubble. That is why I encourage many of you to learn about different types of spirituality as well. Obviously, you all know I'm not religious. Many witches are not. And we connect with the universe, and because God created the universe, and you don't have to call God God. Sometimes you've heard me call God the divine. God is in everything and everything. And if you don't believe in God, that's perfectly fine too. I don't ever want you to feel that you're not welcome here simply because you have a different belief than mine. So long as you respect mine, we're all good. I respect yours, you respect mine. But what I've noticed when it comes to religion in particular, so because now I'm going to move on to that, is that seems to be why so many of you are easy to control, because you haven't taken the time to learn anything outside of what you were taught. And it's concerning, because what happens is a lot of you will come to me for my guidance, but you are afraid of what you think witches are. And you're afraid of what you think tarot is, because you were taught that, but you never decided to take the time to learn anything different. You're afraid of what you think manifestation is, yet manifesting is in everything. You're manifesting right now. You just haven't decided yet, those of you who are new to this, if it's something that you want to continue to learn. You can choose to not learn anything. The reason why I don't teach a lot of manifestation techniques anymore is that you don't actually need the techniques. I wanted you to know them. Don't get me wrong. They're a tool, just like textbooks are tools, etc. But you don't necessarily always need them. Sometimes you do. Just like as a witch, I can tell you, I don't do a lot of spells because I don't need to, because I am the spell. If you ever look at the podcast logo right underneath my picture, it says, "You are the spell." That's on purpose. Because what I really want you to understand is your own alchemy. But you know who really understood their alchemy? Your ancestors. Especially those of you who have a diverse background. Those of you who have all types of ancestry where you were likely like me. Your ancestors were taught that their beliefs were wrong. And so that's why you'll oftentimes hear me talk about the colonization of your education. You choose if you want to learn more than just what you were taught in school. You choose if you want to learn more than what the church told you was right and wrong. The reason why in my disclaimer you hear me say I don't believe in Satan or hell, I also don't believe in the concept of heaven. These are all Christian concepts meant to control, and I'm not somebody that can be controlled. So I am in no way saying that you are wrong if you have a different belief than I am. But what I am saying to you, especially in today's episode, is know where you come from, understand it, and get to know other people's culture, especially if, like myself, you're also Black. Let's say that you're African American. Yes, it's important to know African American history. It's also important to know Black history, because Black history exceeds just the United States. Why do you think I am constantly talking about the diaspora? And I'm constantly talking about Afro-Latinas and Afro-Latinos, both. Because it is very rare, especially when you grew up like I did. I grew up in Texas, that you will come across people who think for themselves, that you will come across diversity. And so I was like, well, I need to make sure that people learn, even if they don't learn from anybody else but me. And I'm the only Afro-Latina they'll ever come across. At least now they can say, hey, there is some diversity out there. Many of my listeners are not even from the United States. 97% of my listeners, their first language is English, which is why this podcast is in English. And very recently, many of my listeners that are in Brazil in particular have made it clear that they want me to keep speaking English because they're learning from me. And this is what I'm referring to, is that it's important to learn from each other. You don't think that I've learned quite a bit from Africans about where my history really began? I certainly have. I'm certainly grateful that many of them have taken the time to explain to me what my ancestors already knew. I've taken the time to learn my own ancestry. And then I've also taken the time to learn other people's culture. My former best friend, she was Asian. And I loved hearing about her culture and their practices. And there is a difference between learning and colonizing. I just wanted to learn it. This is why when I went over the chakra system, I kept telling you, this is just an overview. Because it's not my culture. And so I wanted to make sure that, hey, I'm just going to give you an overview. I'm not going to go too far in depth and tell you need to do X, Y, Z, because I feel like you need to learn from people within that culture. They can teach you much better than I can, but I can at least give you an opening to it. Just like they've given me an opening to many things, and I've given them an opening to learning about Afro-Latina culture. And so that is what today's focus will be on. And with all of that being said, team, let me pull up my notes and let's go ahead and run that disclaimer.